Sometimes I walk past my front door, see that huge steel vault gleaming in the sun, and just shake my head. It still feels unreal. I mean, who in their right mind installs a literal bank vault door on a regular house? Apparently, me. And not because I lost my mind, but because someone pushed me just far enough. I'm pretty sure it's the most ridiculous way anyone's ever responded to a homeowners association, and yeah, I know that sounds insane. But trust me, every bolt, every pound of steel was completely worth it. This wasn't just about keeping someone out, it was about sending a message. So how did I end up here? How did a normal guy in a quiet neighborhood go from planting the wrong flowers to turning his house into something that could survive a zombie invasion? Sit back, because it's a long story. And it starts with a woman named Brenda. When I first moved into Willow Creek Estates, it seemed like the perfect spot. Quiet streets, tall trees, clean sidewalks, and neighbors who waved but mostly kept to themselves. The houses all looked well kept, the lawns neatly trimmed, and the rules, well, there were a lot of them. The Homeowners Association had a thick book of guidelines, but I figured as long as I mowed my lawn and didn't paint the house neon green, I'd be fine. Then I met Brenda. She was the HOA president, and from the minute she introduced herself, I could tell she took her role a little too seriously. Always dressed like she was running for office, clipboard in hand, she had a habit of slowly driving through the neighborhood like she was inspecting a crime scene. She smiled, but it never reached her eyes. At first it was small stuff. A comment about someone's mailbox, a note left on a neighbor's porch about non-compliant trash bins. But pretty soon, it became clear. Brenda wasn't just keeping things organized. She wanted control. If it didn't look exactly how she pictured it in her head, it became a problem. And eventually, that problem was me. It all started with flowers. I planted a few bright red begonias in the front flower bed. Thought they looked nice. Added some color. A week later, I got a letter in the mail with the HOA logo on top, and inside was a printed warning, along with a tiny color chart that looked like it had been copied 100 times. According to Brenda, my flowers weren't on the approved list. Apparently, I was supposed to choose between something called Ruby Radiance or Scarlet Blaze. Mine were Crimson Delight, still red, still alive. But not up to her standards. I didn't want to fight, so I wrote back a polite letter. I explained the flowers were healthy, pest-resistant, and honestly pretty close in color. I even attached a page from a gardening site to back it up. I thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. That's when I realized this wasn't about flowers. It was about power. Brenda didn't want logic. She wanted obedience. Neighbors started giving me that look, the one that says, "Just go with it, it's not worth it." But I couldn't. I'm not the kind of person who backs down just because someone thinks they're in charge, especially when they're wrong. After the flower drama, I thought maybe Brenda would move on. But no, she doubled down. The next letter I got said my mailbox flag was the wrong color. I hadn't even thought about it before. It was silver when I moved in, and it worked just fine. But Brenda had recently pushed a new rule that all flags had to be brass, not silver, because, get this, brass was more neighborhood appropriate, whatever that means. Then came the bird feeder complaint. I had a small one in the backyard where a few chickadees and nuthatches stopped by. Nothing wild, but Brenda claimed it was attracting undesirable avian elements. That's exactly how she worded it. I laughed out loud when I read it. What did she expect? Vultures? Seagulls? Angry crows? By this point, I'd started reading the HOA rulebook cover to cover. I highlighted sections, printed pages, and replied to every notice with calm, clear responses backed by the very rules she claimed I was breaking. I built a folder with every letter I received and every one I sent back. Brenda didn't like that. Her next letters came in all caps, full of exclamation marks, and sounded more like angry rants than official warnings. But I stayed polite. I wasn't trying to fight. I just wasn't going to roll over. That's when it stopped being about the small stuff. It wasn't about flowers or mailboxes anymore. It was about control. And Brenda wasn't used to people saying no. I went out of town for a week to visit my sister. Nothing fancy, just some time away. Before I left, I made sure everything at home was locked up tight. I even asked Mr. Henderson, my neighbor across the street, to keep an eye on things. When I got back, I pulled into my driveway, feeling relaxed, until I tried to unlock my front door. My key slid in, but it wouldn't turn. I tried again. Still nothing. At first, I thought maybe the lock jammed or something broke while I was gone. But when I tried the back door and got the same result, my stomach dropped. That's when I knew something was really wrong. I called Mr. Henderson, and he came over right away. After I explained what happened, he hesitated for a second, then said, "Well, I did see a locksmith van here a couple days ago. Figured you had someone fixing something." I hadn't. The pieces clicked fast. Brenda. Of course it was Brenda. Somehow she'd sent a locksmith to my house, and changed the locks while I was gone. No call, no letter, no permission, just full-on trespassing. It wasn't about mailbox flags anymore. She had crossed a line so hard she broke it. She went into my home like she owned it. And that's when the anger really hit, not loud, not messy, but cold and steady. She didn't just push the rules, she stomped on them. And now things were going to change. The moment I got back into my house, the first thing I did was call my lawyer, Carol. She's sharp, no nonsense, and helped me when I first bought the place. I told her what happened, how my locks had been changed while I was out of town, and then read her the letter Brenda had left on my table, proudly admitting she had it done in the interest of community standards. There was a long silence on the other end of the call. Then Carol said, "She actually put that in writing?" She didn't waste time. She said it was a clear case of illegal entry and had a cease and desist letter drafted before the end of the day. It spelled everything out: trespassing, unauthorized entry, potential legal consequences. While she handled the legal side, I called a trusted locksmith and had all my locks replaced with high-security Medico ones. Strong stuff, hard to pick. I watched every bolt go in, feeling better by the minute, but deep down, I knew it wasn't enough. Brenda thought she could do whatever she wanted. If she did it once, she could try again. That's when the idea hit me. Not just to lock her out, but to make sure she never even thought about getting in again. Not with a locksmith, not with a tank, nothing. At some point, the engineer in me took over. The new locks were strong, but I wanted something Brenda couldn't touch, something so over the top that even she would have to back off. That's when the idea hit me. A vault door. Not just a heavy door or some fancy deadbolt. I'm talking about a real steel bank-grade vault door with a crank handle and a combination lock. The kind you see in movies when they're breaking into a safe. I started doing research, calling companies that build secure doors for banks and panic rooms. Most of them thought I was joking when I told them it was for the front of a regular house. One guy actually laughed until I explained what Brenda did. Then he just said, "I've seen worse." I hired a structural engineer to check if my house could handle the weight. She ran the numbers, checked the foundation, and gave me the green light with a few upgrades. The specs were insane. Solid steel, multiple locking bolts, nearly 2 tons of reinforced metal. I checked the HOA rules 3 times. Nothing said what kind of door I could or couldn't install, as long as it was well maintained. So I figured, if I can't stop her with paperwork, I'll stop her with steel. The day the vault door arrived, It came on a massive flatbed truck. The thing looked like it belonged in a bank or maybe a bunker, not a quiet suburban street. It took a crane and a whole team to get it into place. Neighbors peeked through their blinds. A few came outside to watch. And right on cue, Brenda showed up. Clipboard in hand, that same smug look, until she saw it. She froze on my front lawn, staring at the door like it had grown out of the ground. Then came the pounding. Fists on steel, then yelling. "This is against HOA policy," she shrieked. I didn't answer the door. Instead, I spoke through the security camera, nice and calm. "Hi, Brenda. Actually, Section 7, page 42, says the door must be in good condition and fit the house. This one's brand new. Fits just fine." She turned red, started shouting again, threatened to call the police. "Please do," I said through the speaker. "I'd love for them to hear about the last time you changed my locks." A few neighbors were filming now. One of them clapped. Another laughed out loud. Brenda stormed off, yelling about bylaws and disrespect. But it didn't matter. She wasn't getting past that door. Ever again. It didn't take long after the vault door showdown for things to come crashing down on Brenda. My lawyer, Carol, pushed hard. And she didn't miss. The HOA ended up settling. They paid all my legal fees, covered the cost of the locksmith, and even threw in extra for the stress and invasion of privacy. The best part? Brenda had to write a public apology and step down as HOA president. The board finally woke up. They brought in new members, actual reasonable people who cared more about the neighborhood than bossing everyone around. As for the vault door, it stayed right where it was. People started calling it Fort Peterson. Some even asked where I got it. Every time I turn that heavy steel wheel and hear the bolts slide into place, I feel a calm I didn't know I needed. Sometimes keeping your peace means drawing a hard line. Sometimes it means steel. Got your own HOA horror story? Drop it in the comments. I might just need inspiration for my next home upgrade.